All right, I just want to make a really short video about the current U.S. economy and the stock market. As you know, I've been calling this for a while. I said that by printing all these goddamn welfare checks, we were headed towards inflation. And I understood that based on a cartoon, DuckTales, which is something you actually really should watch. If you just go to YouTube and you just type DuckTales inflation lesson, this may be the most important cartoon in all of freaking YouTube. And they explain how inflation works, especially if you're one of these kids who either slept through high school and didn't understand economics, or if you never went to high school, or if you just happen to not know anything about economics. You should really watch this video, and it'll help explain it on a level that just about anybody can understand. So here's the thing. They're saying inflation is here and hotter than it looks. So I think it's so funny that for so long people were listening to the lies coming out of the government about there not being much inflation based on a number that they throw out and say, yeah, there's not a lot of inflation or there's not that much that you should worry. Simple fact is, we're feeling inflation in terms of cost of living increases. And when I say cost of living increases, what I mean is that if the government's printing out money, the cost of goods and services is going to be in reaction definitely rising. So that means that they give you all this money, and ultimately you got to understand with these stimulus checks, when you do your taxes, what you'll understand is that the state income tax was pretty much paused on you, and that's how they were able to give you these stimulus checks. So what ended up happening was you ultimately did not pay state income tax, and in some case, and I won't say that's for everybody because some people have it differently, but if you got stimulus checks, chances are you didn't pay state income tax. If you got no state income tax, yeah, you probably definitely got a stimulus check. But here's the thing: how about if you didn't get a stimulus check? Chances are you actually will get more back on your state income tax so long as you don't owe anything in the background. Now, everybody is very different. Everybody's situation is very different, so I can't speak for everybody in general. But yeah, inflation is definitely here, and not only that, it's here in a way that you can't ignore it. So that was one of the stories that I had posted on Wall Street Trapping, where on my little Facebook group right here. And then they were talking about American credit card debt has declined. Now, I will say this: the last time I saw American credit card debt decline and the American savings rate increase was back during 2009. The reason why was because when people are afraid, they start to hoard money. If you go back to 2001, the Federal Reserve had to lower interest rates to damn near nothing after 9/11. And that was in order to convince people that they needed to go out and spend money and in order to go out and buy houses. What people did was they overused and abused the credit. And what they did was they bought houses, boats, they bought expensive cars that they couldn't afford. And we all know how that went because by 2008 we went into the great crash. Now, ultimately, that crash was really about the banks and their ability to lend credit because the banks had over leveraged themselves to the point where they risked tearing their own selves down because their market capitalization was outstripped by all of the losses that they would have incurred. But giving us credit cards is one way of them trying to hide inflation because what they're doing is they're sucking up a lot of the inflation by charging interest rates and charging maintenance fees on these accounts. Here's the thing though: what happens when you go into pandemic and there's no longer anything or there's not a lot of stuff to spend on with your credit card? Well, people were sitting at home, they were buying all this shit off of Amazon, and they're making Jeff Bezos a billionaire or a trillionaire, damn near a trillionaire. Well, he's not really a trillionaire because his wife took half that money. But anyway, they're sitting at home buying shit off a Home Shopping Network. They're sitting at home ordering DoorDash, ordering Uber Eats. They're sitting at home buying shit off eBay. They're sitting at home buying Disney movies off of Disney Plus. So the point is, they were spending a lot of money and they were spending it on credit card. Here's the thing though: the government printed out these checks, and the smart people did exactly what they did when Bush sent out these welfare checks. Bush sent out $600 stimulus checks, and I remember receiving that back in 2008 or 2007. I remember. I think it was the beginning of 2008 actually. But Bush was sending out stimulus checks because his economy was a disaster, and people took those checks, and if they didn't pay off debt with them, what they did was they took them and they just put it into their savings account. So that's basically exactly what happened here. People had credit card bills. They took those stimulus checks. They paid off their credit card bills. And that's just what it is. Credit card debt didn't really plummet. What happened was the government printed out money and the people took the money and paid off their credit card bills. And that's, maybe they say that, maybe they don't, because I didn't, it says based on average incomes of zip codes, lower income borrowers reduced their card balances by 15. Yeah, well, think about that right there. Lower income borrowers were the ones who would get a stimulus check. High income, anybody who made like over $98,000 a year, they didn't get stimulus checks. Low income people were the ones who got stimulus checks, and most of them probably did the smart thing and they paid off their credit card debt. Some of them took that money and put it into their savings account. Others took that money and bought fucking Dogecoin and Bitcoin with it, or Ethereum or whatever. But the point is, they sank that money into the stock market or the cryptocurrency market. Yeah, blah blah blah. I don't know what having these two post-wall women toasting next to the water fountain has to do with credit card. I don't know what that's about, but it says, what is this? Two women have a picnic. This is what a picnic looks like. I thought a picnic had grass, but anyway. Two women have a picnic lunch in Miami's Design District shopping area on May 7th, 2020. Yeah, okay. Okay, so it says 2021 began with a strong increase of extensions on mortgage. And that's another thing. People didn't have to pay, in many cases, they didn't have to pay their mortgages or they didn't have to pay their rent. Now, for myself, during 2020, I actually made more money than ever before. And part of that is because you understand that I was doing the stock market. And the stock market, once it crashed, I piled money into the stock market. Most of my friends, even the ones who listen to my advice, and some of the ones who didn't, and because see, I was always pushing stocks rather than cryptocurrency. I know people who made $30,000 in crypto, $60,000. I know people who did the same thing in stock. I know people who made $100,000 plus in stock, bought $20,000 worth of stock, and made over $250,000. I can't make that up. And it was really simple to understand why. It's because it was a market crash. Everything dropped back last year during March 2020, and that's the reason why I was rushing people. I was like, listen, buy the oil stocks, buy the bank stocks, buy the airlines. They're down right now, but they ain't going to be down forever. So that's simply put. I don't have to keep on bragging about it because at this point, it's like, I just don't have to. So anyway, then there was another story I was adding. Mortgage rates sink deeper below 3%. The Federal Reserve is ultimately expanding the money supply. That's what they do. The Federal Reserve expands the money supply, and for the most part, they control the interest rates, right? They have to keep the interest rates low. I believe that we may have reached a point where the interest rates absolutely cannot go up. Now, some people like Peter Schiff might call this quantitative easing infinity because this is just continuation of quantitative easing based on 2001 when Alan Greenspan had the Fed. But understand this, when interest rates go down, what that does is allows more people to be able to qualify for credit and mortgages. A mortgage is basically just a credit card. It's just a credit. It's a purchase of a house through financing. And it has a % interest rate on it. And it just so happens that mortgage rates were dropped down to below 3%. So that means I have people in my family, they financed a 15%. I'm sorry, they financed the 15-year mortgages below 3%, or they financed to 30-year fixed mortgages, or purchased a house for the first time and they got below, they got about a 3 or better, right? In my family, home ownership is a really big deal. In my family, land ownership is a really big deal. Most of my family, they refuse to buy a house unless it has a gigantic plot of land on it. Now, the downside is when I go over to their houses, they have to have fucking tractors just to be able to do the grass. And I'm talking about, this is New York, Long Island, where they may have like damn near half an acre worth of land, and now they got to buy a damn tractor just to do the snow and the grass, right? Now, here in New York, that kind of house is going to cost you $500,000, $500,000. If you were to go down to other states, Or if you go out west, chances are you can find even bigger properties with bigger plots of land and you pay even less money for it. But I live in New York and I refuse to move anytime soon. When I retire, maybe I'll change my mind. But bottom line is, when interest rates drop, it makes it easier for people to apply for credit. That means that the demand for credit and houses goes up. Now, credit cards in and of themselves are basically not tangible. So the credit within those cards, they're giving you a promise of money and you're promising to pay them back real life cash, right? A house is different. A house is a commodity. A house can run out. They can print as much credit as they want. They can have a credit line for $1 trillion. It doesn't matter as long as you're, paying it back. And if you don't pay it back, they go after you, right? They garnish your wages. With a house, though, that's a commodity. Houses run out of supply. So the problem is, if the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates, it causes house prices to skyrocket. This happened in 2008. This happened in 2001 leading up to 2008. The problem that I see, and you're not going to hear anybody else talk about this shit, the problem that I see is that you're basically making, even though the credit for these houses is low, even though the interest rate is lower than 3 or whatever, the problem is the house value, the cost of the house is so high until the average buyer who's a first-time home buyer can't afford to buy a house. So it doesn't matter how low the interest rate is. They can't afford the house because the house's value has gone up. The same thing happened in 2008. The house values were so high despite the fact that the interest rates were relatively low. And the like, especially around here in New York, the housing, like, person I got my first house from, they wanted $530,000, and when the market crashed, they were forced to sell it for $250,000. And that $250,000 was a steal because these houses were really only worth $165,000, $170,000, but the market forced their values to be artificially inflated inside New York City. So she sold it to me at a loss, but I ended up making out, she ended up making out, and she went her way, and now, she's happily retired and she's gone and this, that, and the other. The woman who sold it. But even the woman who sold me my second house, she wanted to move, and the people who were living here, they moved out, and she sold it at, I guess, a market low, because as soon as I was signing the paperwork on the place, the value had already shot up by like $10,000, and that was 2018. Right now, even though I bought the second house for $300,000, I could easily sell the house for $500,000. The housing market here in New York is crazy. But what they're doing, the Federal Reserve, they're keeping these interest rates low. All that does is it causes people to spend more credit, to take out more credit, and it makes it so that houses are unaffordable. So houses are selling, but the thing is, who's buying these houses? Who's buying the houses? Well, guess what? Corporations are buying houses. That's who's buying these houses. And you don't hear these stories because the news is bullshit and all they want to talk about is bullshit and it's boring and it's stupid. And that's the reason why most people are turning to YouTube now for more better news and better world views and better entertainment, because the news sucks. So how corporations are buying up houses. This is the shit that you don't hear about. Corporations are buying up houses. Now, this has been happening since last year, 2020, July. This has been happening. Corporations have so much money that they've decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to buy up these goddamn houses, and we're going to make Generation Z, and we're going to make Generation Alpha, and probably what's left over of Generation Y, millennials. We're going to make all these motherfuckers permanent renters. Permanent renters. You're going to be permanent renters. That's what you're going to be. Permanent renters. You're never going to own shit. The only thing you're going to be able to own possibly is some piece of shit Japanese Econo box, and that's going to fall apart, and we're going to switch that up. You're going to have to buy an electric car. You're going to be permanent renters. You're never going to own anything. You're not going to be able to pass anything down to your kids. Your kids are going to be permanent renters. Your little baby, his asshole is going to be a cash register. That's what they're doing. And you're not going to hear this on Fox. You're not going to hear this on MSNBC. You're not going to hear this on CNN because those channels suck and they're fake. That fake news, all of them are fake news. So, that's just it. And as you can see, we got Warren Buffett right here. We got B.W. Hughes, and they are part of it. They are buying up houses, corporations. And that's just it. You're going to be a bunch of permanent renters. And this is the reason why. I made videos about this. You know I made videos about this. I kept telling people, I was like, listen, leave these fucking cars alone. They're trying to get you to take out loans on these fucking cars to fuck up your debt to income ratio. And once that happens, you won't even be able to buy a house. Buy your property first. After that, once you got your property, you got a house, you got a motherfucking roof, you got some land outside. I just was outside doing my flowers. I bought some orange flowers. I put them next to some purple flowers that I bought. I bought some red flower. I got red, and I buy nothing but perennials because I'm lazy and I don't like to water my plants. And perennials, even though they're not as nice as annuals, they keep growing year after year. Even if it freezes outside and it snows, they keep growing. I was just outside doing some flowers and gardening and this, that, and the other. And I'm a total amateur when it comes to gardening. Bottom line is, I got a roof. I got land. I'm a landowner. I got land. Do you got land? Your mama's basement is not land. Your dad's attic is not land. Like, there's so many women and boys from my childhood who are turning 40 right now. I'm 39. I turn 40 later this year. But they're turning 40 or 41, and they're living in their parents' house at 40 and 41. Oh, shit, I gotta turn that off. Somebody's gonna try to fucking... I don't feel like doing that goddamn FaceTime shit. So anyway, living in daddy and mommy's house, and they turning in their 40s, and they millennials just like me. And my thing is, it's like, what have y'all been doing? I've been out here getting this bag. I've been chasing this money. I've been making my money, working hard, this, that, and the other. What have y'all been doing? Y'all are living in your daddy's house. You're living in your mommy's house. And the scary thing is, if your parents died from COVID, because this happened to some of my coworkers, their parents died from COVID. Or if your parents die and do leave you the property, the question is, will you have the know-how? Will you have the income to be able to keep that house up instead of losing it? They had a statistic, and they said, like, by the third generation, most wealth that's accumulated is lost. I have Asian friends. I got Jewish friends. Most of their money is tied up in real estate. Their house, when they are getting old, they pass their houses down to their children. Their children usually have a job and some income, and they're able to pay the taxes. And they keep those houses. Those are ancestral homes. They make the repairs in those houses. If they can, they build on those houses. They don't lose that shit. Meanwhile, a lot of the people I know, when their parents die, either it's some bullshit, it's a reverse mortgage or this, that, and other, and they end up losing their parents' house. Houses that I grew up playing in with my friends, losing those goddamn houses. That's the kind of thing that makes me upset. That's the kind of thing that makes me angry, because it lets me understand that, you know what? Y'all can't accumulate any wealth because you're so busy fucking off your money and buying these shitty used cars and spending up all your goddamn money. That's one of the reasons why you haven't seen me buy anything that big and that new lately. I buy a lot of electronic equipment and toys, but I don't really spend a whole lot of money. And it's like the last couple of things I bought. Like, I bought an air conditioning unit, and I was going to buy another air conditioning unit. I'm not spending crazy money right now. Right now, I'm holding this money until this recession slows down or ends, and I'm looking to buy a third motherfucking house. I got friends who are living in their daddy's, female friends in their 40s, living in dad's attic. Because, you know, daddy lets their little girl live in the attic. But the boy, oh, you got to go in the basement. So the boys stay in mommy's basement, and the girls stay in daddy's attic. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here. I can shout. I can stomp my feet. I'm not a renter. Nobody can tell me shit. I'm in my own house. Got a roof over my head. If I want to leave my lights on, if I want to flush my toilet, I can do whatever I want. Nobody can say shit at all. If you ain't purchasing nope, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Okay, if you're not purchasing property, you're doing something wrong. You see, this is the problem with being a YouTuber and having this money. Everybody always trying to call you and get at your money. Everybody always trying to call you and get something out of you. It's like, leave me alone. This is Sunday morning. I'm here. This is the Lord's time right now. So anyway, you need to be getting yourself a property because these corporations are not playing around. They're buying up all of this shit, buying it all up. You are going to be a future of renters. I raised my hand to God. I said I will never pay nobody rent under this motherfucker in America. As long as I'm on American soil, I'm not paying nobody no goddamn rent to live in a house. Now, I've been overseas. I've paid people rent for condos. I paid people rent for apartments overseas in other countries where Americans aren't allowed to own anything. That's one thing. Like if you go travel, that's one thing. But I would never pay nobody no goddamn rent in this country. Like it's just not especially one of these foreign people who uses the cash money that we sent to their country, that when we were buying all these televisions and cell phones and shit, and they were stacking up our cash and they come over here and buy our houses, I will never pay no foreigner no goddamn rent. Whatever I pay is between me and the bank. And the bottom line is when I walk into the bank with my 850 credit score, I tell them what it is. It's like, oh yeah, you see that house? I'm getting that house with a 3%, period. Nothing, 3%, less than 3%, whatever it is. You giving me the prime rate. And that's how you got to do it. I ain't playing no games with these people. I can walk into the bank. I can walk into there with slippers on and in pajamas, and they got to treat me like I'm Warren Buffett when I walk into that bank. They go, oh shit, this guy's got an 850 credit score, and he's got cash? He got all this cash? You got holdings in freaking Berkshire Hathaway? Oh shit, well let me get you some coffee. I've had managers get up and get me coffee. And you know what's funny? When you go into the bank, they take a look at you and they treat you like shit right up until you get up to that receptionist and they look into your account and then they see what you got. All of a sudden, oh shit, let me get you some coffee, sir. It's like I don't play no games with these damn bankers, but a lot of y'all be playing these games. Y'all financing these cars, what is it, 0% for 72 months and all this shit? I'm not fucking around with these people. I'm out to get this cash. I'm out to get this property. I think all I need is a total of just 3 houses. I don't think I need more than that. 3 houses is enough. I know some people would keep going and they buy like 4, 5, 6. I ain't got time for that shit. And when my parents die, I'll inherit their property. So, you know, I think 3 is just enough because it's hard enough dealing with tenants and, you know, the toilet needs to be fixed and shit or the shower needs to be fixed and they're calling me. I had to buy these air conditioner units. Oh, it's too hot. It's getting hot. Okay, fine. Shut up. I'm going to buy the air conditioning unit. I go to, Walmart, get that shit for $269. I throw that shit up in there, and I shut them up. And keep them tenants paying that money. And when I'm talking about tenants, I got them on direct debit. When I wake up in the morning, the money from their account is already in my account. I don't play no games. I ain't got no time to be chasing nobody, talking about moratoriums, talking about eviction pull. I ain't got no time for none of that. So the bottom line is you need to get you some property. And I say just like that, you need to get some property. Yeah, stop fucking with these stupid cars. Stop spending your money on Gucci and Prada and stupid shit. Get yourself some property before the corporations make you and your baby and your baby's babies a generation of permanent renters. Get yourself some property. Get yourself some property.